Can I have everyone's attention?
Yes.
Crisscross applesauce, please. Today, we're converting fractions into decimals and percents. Why is this important? It's important so that we can show what a percentage of a fraction or a decimal looks like. It's also a lot easier to compare two things when it's a percentage rather than a fraction, I should say. So, being able to compare different amounts is easier with a percentage than a fraction. That's really the biggest reason why. And when do we do this? Every time we need to show the percentage of an amount of something. One of these things could be a person's grade. Sometimes you see that as a percentage. I know you know that I don't do that very much, but you will see that.
75%.
What's that? Go ahead.
75% maybe?
Like 75% could be 98%. Those are examples. And then we have people or things in a place. So if they want to know what percentage of people are here, then that would be a situation where we would use a percentage. Does anyone have any questions about that? Victoria?
Oh wait, never mind.
Kirsten?
So when you say people or things in place, you mean like if someone like if Miss Oaksy comes in and asks us what percentage of attendance do you have, and 2 people are absent, and we have 20 kids, so it'd be 18%. No.
Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah, we're not quite there yet, but that's kind of how it's used. Is that they want to know what percentage of people are here, or what percentage do we still need to do? Desiree?
So the people or things in a place. So is it a group of things that are in a place that you want to know?
Yes. I don't want us to spend too much time on people or things in a place because that's not how it's always used. But it's just an example of how it can be used. But let's take a look at what we have here. This is a little chart that I made. We looked at something like this before. Now we're going to start by using the picture to turn it into a fraction, the fraction into a decimal, and then the decimal and the percent really go hand in hand, and it should be pretty easy to get a percent once you have the decimal. Now, I'm sure you can't count all of these with your eyes from where you are, so I'll tell you, of all of these in this box, in this top flat, we should know how many are there. How many is there, everybody?
100.
So what is, yep, no, you're fine. So what is our denominator? We know our denominator will be what, Kirsten?
100.
It'll be 100. So we know the denominator will be 100. So we know that it's going to be something over 100. To save you the time of having to look at it, I'll tell you that we have 50 boxes shaded in. So you should be able to figure out what would our fraction be. Kristen?
50 over 100.
Be 50 over 100.
Wouldn't that be a half?
Now you know from before that 50 over 100 is 1/2, but we're not worried about turning it into 1/2. Keeping it like this is fine for now. What is helpful is in the future when you need to convert it from 1/2 to a percentage. You need to take this step before you make it a decimal. But you don't need to go from 50 over 100 to 1/2. Who has questions about that? Because that can be confusing.
No question, but I know the decimal.
1 second, Diego. Wait till I call on you. Kirsten, a question?
I just want you to.
Okay, so they might tell you this, and you need to take an extra step. Make sure crisscross applesauce, please. You need to take an extra step to make it out of 100. So when we go from a fraction to the decimal, you remember the poem we talked about a while ago that you just say the number and then the last place value? So we're doing that backward today. So if we're going to say 50 hundredths, what will that look like as a decimal? Let's clap and share. Just a few seconds, ready? Ready? So what decimal would it be? What decimal would it be, Ian? 0.50. Now I know I can hear some of you saying to each other and thinking that we don't need to say 0.50, we can say 0.5. Well, when you're doing percentages, when you're doing percents, doing the 0.50 can actually be more helpful. Because then you're less likely to call that 5%. If I look at this, I know what percent that's going to be because you know that percent, like we talked about before, means out of 100. So what percent would we write there? Andy?
50%.
50%. Now who's confused about that? Confused about that? Give me just a second. I have a phone call. I want you to think about this one. There are 25 there. What fraction, decimal, percent would it be? Let's share. Ready? Eddie, your father's going to pick you up. Have a nice night, Eddie. We'll see you tomorrow. Ready? So let's start with the fraction. What fraction would it be? Fraction would it be, Victoria?
25 over 100.
25 over 100. What decimal would it be? Joe? 0.25, or you could just say 25 hundredths, but for this situation, I like how you said 0.25. What percent would it be, Aaron?
25%.
25%. Anyone have any questions about it? Desiree?
It's not a question, but that went off.
Oh, don't worry about that. That's just trying to save the batteries. Not a big deal. Don't focus on the computer. That's not important. This is what's important, please. So, anyone have any questions about this? Diego?
The first one, wouldn't it work for 0.5?
0.5 like this?
Yeah.
If you had 0.5, yeah, that's fine. But what I said was making it 0.50, 0.50 is almost easier when doing percents because that way you're less likely to call that 5%.
What if you used a 0.5?
If they tell you this equals 50%.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense?
Spot on.
It's just the 0 can make it less confusing. Because someone might call that 5% just as before when they were confused about decimals, comparing them, saying how this is larger than this. We know that people struggled at times showing that 0.5 is greater than 0.25. So for that reason, I'm saying the 0 will make it easier to convert it to a percentage. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Questions about this, Desiree?
So can't you, so basically you could add the 0 and that would make it 50, but you don't have to?
Exactly. You don't have to, but it's less confusing is all. This is the only time that I can think of right now that I would say it's best to put the 0 there when you're going to percentages. Also, if you're comparing these two, would be a time when you could do that. Kirsten? Okay, well, let's make sure we all know what we're doing before we go on. Go ahead, Ian.
So whatever's at the decimal is the percent?
Yeah, they're pretty much exactly the same. The tricky part is going from fraction to decimal. Anyone else with a question? Okay, this one, you can probably see by comparing it to this, there are 75 filled in.
I knew it!
No, this is 85.
If these two, I take those two away, that's minus 20, right? So that's 80. Minus those 5, I take 5 away from 80 would be 75. Okay, so what decimal are we looking at here, Haley? Or I'm sorry, what fraction? My fault.
75 over 100.
75 over 100, which we know, if we're going to say that correctly, we're going to say what, Haley?
75 hundredths.
And when I say that, well, I just said the decimal, didn't I?
Yeah.
75 hundredths. What percentage would it be? Janessa?
75%.
Questions about it? Ian, any questions? This one, only one row filled in at the top. You probably don't need me to tell you how many that is. What what are we looking at? You know what? Give me just a second. I want to go back. I want to take one step back. You remember from before, if we reduce this to the lowest terms, what would 25/100ths be? 25/100ths would be what, Diego?
60. I mean, the denominator would be 60 and. Oh, sorry, no, lowest terms.
Yep, lowest terms. It's okay, we'll come back to you. Kristen?
1/4.
It'd be 1/4. Because I look at this, and how many times does 25 go into 100? It goes into it 4 times. Just like 4 quarters is $1. So this is 1/4. If 75 over 100 is 1/4, what is, I'm sorry, 25 over 100, what is 75 over 100? Someone haven't talked to you yet. Andrew?
3/4.
3/4, excellent. Now, this is more challenging when they say turn 3/4 into a percentage. This, when you have this, you need to make it out of 100 because percentage means the number out of
100.
everybody.
100.
Questions about it? What would this one be? What would this one be? Hunter?
10 over 5.
No.
10 over 100.
10 over 100, excellent. Or you could reduce that to what, Aaron?
1/10 or half a fifth.
We're not going to do half a fifth. We never put a fraction as a numerator. So half a fifth we don't want. 1/10 is what you want. What decimal would it be, Victoria?
The decimal would be 10. I mean 1.
Point 1 or point 10.
Yes.
What percentage would it be, Kayla?
10%.
10%? Okay. I feel like we have a good idea of how this works.
Yes, we do.
We don't need to do the last 2. We can come back and look at this toward the end. Here's what we're doing today.
Ooh.
Now this is exactly what we just did. We're not trying to fool you at all. You have a certain amount here, and we use the most common fractions: 1/2, 1/4, 3/4, 1/10. These ones, many of these are just kind of random, where they might have 37 of them filled out.
Do we have to reduce them?
Wait, just please listen. Where they might have 37 of them filled out, or is some random number. But will it ever be more than 100?
No.
No. When you get into 5th grade, they go over 100, but we don't talk about over 100 much more in 4th grade. We only want to show the percentage out of 100. Kirsten?
It's just like Diego's. Do we have to do the lowest terms?
Okay, so if you get through the entire sheet and you have extra time, then you can reduce them, but we don't need you to reduce them. Questions about it?
I'm glad.
Here's what we're going to do. We're going to have group 3 and 4 start with this activity. Group 1, group 2, we want you to finish adding your decimals from yesterday. That should only take you about 10 to 15 minutes. After that, we're going to switch. I'll be calling at least one small group today. You need to be crisscross applesauce. I'll be calling at least one small group today, and if I have time, we'll do 2 small groups. Haley?
What if you already finished adding them?
If you finish adding your decimals, which who here is done adding their decimals? About half of us. If you're done adding your decimals, I do want to collect that today. I did not collect any of them yesterday.
I did.
And if you're done with this, done adding your decimals, we want you to work on your mountain math.
I'm done.
If you're done with all of those, let me know, and we will have something for you. Does anyone have any questions? Diego,
Can I get my sheet back?
your sheet, yep. I will give you, your sheets are on top of the cubbies over there.
Oh, okay.
Anyone confused about how this works? This is the most important thing we're doing right now. This, and of course adding your decimals. And we will come together toward the end of the period to do our reflection splash. Let me put these, I'm going to put these at the back table right there at group 4. Please sit down. I'll put these at the back table right there at group 4. You can go get them and work on them as soon as you're ready. And if you know what to do, let's get started. If you are confused, come on over. Adding decimals, then you do this. I'm putting it on the desk. I like how Diego gets right to work on adding those decimals. Thank you, Diego.